Hello, my name is Mark Eckhart. I'm the owner of Long Haul Folding Kayaks, the finest folding sea kayaks in the world. All right, we'll start the assembly. We have our bow keel here and our bow piece. Just simply slide those two together. Next, our two bow rods with red caps. Hooking those onto the bow piece with the hook facing up. The next piece will be rib number 1. So when you put the ribs in, it's very important that the numbers face the numbers, and all numbers face towards the center lock of the keel. It just simply drops into the slot in the keel. Hook the rods on, and we're always making sure that the bow piece remains fully engaged onto the keel, meaning it's slid all the way up to this point right here. Rib number 2, same thing. The numbers face the numbers, and the numbers are always facing towards the center lock in the keel, just like that. And then just go ahead and click the rods on. And then the next piece will be the bow deck bar. This is the deck bar. This runs along the top of the ribs. And this is the deck bar cap. Lift that up. And the deck bar simply slides in from the side, just like that. Deck bar cap then goes down over the top of it. Next piece is bow gunwale. You have two bow gunwales. They're interchangeable. There's not a left and a right. Starting with the bow gunnel. Simply engage that lock on the bow piece. Engage the lock on the rib to the gunnel. Same thing on rib number 2. Pull the pin to securely lock it. So that gunnel is in place. Engage the lock on the gunnel to the bow piece. Engage the gunnel to rib number 1. Lock it in place. Same thing with rib number 2. Number 2. Pin it in place. This is our foot brace, and the foot brace is used when you don't want to use the rudder assembly. In the installation of the foot brace, we're just simply going to disengage the side release buckle, take this one component right here, and we're going to just simply slide it onto the end of the deck bar. All right, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the rudder foot control. Simply drop this down into the track. And pin it on each side. Pinned in place. Okay, then we have our shock cord that we will hook to the pedals. There. And there. That keeps the pedals in a neutral position. All right. Next step is to slide the bow frame half into the skin. We're going to slide the bow piece right down the center of the deck. Just like that. When you're sliding the frame halves into the boat, whenever you're sliding that frame half in, anytime you meet resistance, stop, pull it back out, and start over again. Never force anything. Stern piece slides right onto the stern keel. Next, your two stern rods with blue caps. I'm going to go ahead and take the two center rods. The center rods, there are 4 center rods. The 2 of the center rods have sliding sleeves. And 2 of the center rods are without sliding sleeves. These rods actually can go in either way. There. Next thing, I've got rib number 7. Again, the number is facing the number, and again the numbers are facing towards the center keel lock. Again, I'm making sure that the stern piece stays engaged completely with the keel. Next, rib number 6. Engage the rods onto the rod holders. There. Next piece will be the stern deck bar. Exactly the same assembly as the bow. Slides in from the side. Deck bar cap locking it in place, and it sits in the grooves of the number 6 and 7 ribs. Okay, gunnels. There's the stern gunnel. They engage just like the bow gunnels did. Lock it, okay. Engaging the gunnel to the rib, number 6. And with our cotter pin, locking it in place. Okay, now we're ready to slide the stern frame half into the stern of the hull. Again, we'll want to push that stern piece right down the center of the deck. Just like that. All right, now that we have the 2 frame halves into the hull, I'm going to start locking the keel and gunnel sections down and then start putting the last 3 ribs into the boat. We're going to take the air sponson tubes and just simply bring it up through the gunnel. And that's the same on both sides. We are engaging the keel lock first, and then that is actually stretching out the boat. Then we're going to disengage the keel. That relaxes the ends of the boat. That takes the tension off the boat. We have rocker in the keel. So by engaging the keel lock, the ends are actually going down and the center locks on the gunnels are separating. So by disengaging the keel lock, then we can simply come back in here, and now the gunnel locks will easily lock without any difficulty of engaging the locks properly. All right, now that we have the keel and the gunnels engaged, now we're going to start putting in ribs 3, 4, and 5. Simply, the spreader bar just holds the gunnels apart and makes it easier to put in the ribs. And then we will put in the last 2 center rods, and these are the center rods with the sliding sleeves. So, the female end here will go on to the male end of the bow rod. Just slip, they just ferrules that slide over themselves. Okay, and then they engage. Simply slide the sliding sleeve over the male end of the opposite rod. Perfect. Same on both. And then one more small detail that we just want to make sure that the screw in the rod is always facing up and never down in the rubber. So that screw's pointing up. Now I'm going to install rib number 3. And what I want to do here is I want to get the 2 locks on rib number 3 to drop into the square cutout in the gunnel. So I'm going to kind of have this rib at a bit of an angle like this as I put it in there, and I'll get the locks into those square or rectangular cutouts in the gunnel. So putting it into the other side, and I'm in right there now. That's simple. Now the rib just simply dropped into place on the bottom. The keel locks dropped right in. Now I'm going to grab the rib and the gunnel, and I'm going to simply engage the lock. Then I'm going to bring the cotter pin lanyard around the inside of the rib and clip it in place. So now that we've engaged the pin on this side, we simply do the same on the other side of the rib. Then the next step is to engage the deck bar lock. We're going to put the pin through it. Done. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the gunnel hooks. There's a gunnel hook here, and there's a gunnel hook over on this side also. These 2 D-rings are attached to those gunnel hooks. These gunnel hooks are simply there for an aid in sailing, for shrouds, for a sailing rig, or they can also simply, these 2 D-rings can simply be used as a little bit more secure tie-down point. And these hooks are hooking on the bow center section of the gunnel. That location right there. And they will hook on there after we blow up the air sponsons. Keep in mind that these hooks often, when you're sliding the frame half in, oftentimes those hooks will hook on the frame and cause you problems. So anytime you have difficulty, always look for these hooks to make sure that they are not hooked all the way down here on the bottom, which is a problem. It pulls the whole deck over this way, and then you won't get the boat together. So always make sure that the gunnel hooks are in this location. The next rib we're going to put in is rib number 5. And back again, when I put this in, the number always faces the number, and the number always faces right there to the center of the boat. And we're going to, same thing, we're going to get these locks into the square cutouts in the gunnels. All right, once we've got the rib locks into the square cutouts in the gunnels, then we're just going to simply just drop that. They'll drop right into place. We're going to engage the lock on the rib to the gunnel, right there. Then the next thing, we'll just go ahead and lock it in place. Same thing to this side. Engage the lock and tongue and pin it in place. And this automatically engage the deck bar tongue into the top lock of rib number 5, and then lock it. All right, then next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the rod onto the rod holder on each side, and I'm going to do that on rib number 3 also. Okay, last rib to go in is number 4. Again, the number faces the number, and it's facing the center lock in the boat. All right, so same thing. We're putting the locks into the square cutouts, just like that. Very simple. Drop it into place. Go ahead and engage the lock. Hook the pin. Then simply engage the rod into the rod holder. Okay, next piece that we're going to install is the combing. On the bottom of that combing bracket, we have a T-fitting. That T-fitting is going to drop down through the grommet in the deck and into the rectangular slot in the deck bar fitting. We're going to have the combing at a right angle to the kayak when we install that. And we drop that T-fitting down into the rectangular slot and turn it. And we know it's engaged when you cannot remove that from the boat. Okay, next we're going to put the grommet in the deck over the T-fitting. We're going to open up the lock on the rib. Set the T-fitting into the top of the lock. Close the lock. Secure the lock with the pin. Same procedure on the other side. T-fitting through the grommet. The grommet drops down into the top of the lock. Close the lock and secure it with the pin. All right, next procedure, hooking the end of the combing onto the locks here, just like that. Same thing on this side. The next procedure that I will do here is we're going to tuck the combing rubber into the groove in the top of the combing. Same thing on this side. And lastly, we're just going to take this rubber flap and push it up. So the deck stands up vertical and we get a little bit of better watertight seal there. All right, last piece we're going to put on is your boomerang. This has your hull identification number. The 4 screws on the inside of the boomerang hook onto the 4 grommets on the deck. And the 2 screws on the outside drop down into the slots in the fittings. Next, we're going to install the long haul comfort seat. It also is a great camp chair. The seat cushion is a Thermarest seat cushion. So it's a self-inflating cushion. It'll self-inflate, shut the valve. On the keel, there are 2 sets of straps. We actually strap the seat to the keel. So we simply just drop the seat in. This buckles and straps come up through the slots in the keel.
Okay.
So then here are the 2 buckles that came up through the slots in the bottom of the seat, and simply just cinch them down onto the keel. Then we've got front strap. This just secures the front of that cushion more securely. And then you can adjust the backrest. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the rudder blade and head. And we have our pin and yoke. This is going to mount onto here. All right, once we've got the blade head onto the rudder bracket, slide the yoke on, and the pin drops right down all the way. Then the next thing, we have our lift line. Lift line will always be attached to your boat when you get it. Just disconnect the carabiner from the D-ring. Then the lift line will go through the deck fitting. Also will go through the rudder pin, and then it hooks into the rudder blade. Next, we're going to do our rudder cables. We're going to attach the carabiner to the yoke. Like that. So we got both the cables attached to the yoke. Okay, then we're going to take the chain through the holes in the boomerang. Pull those through. Pull that forward. Same thing here. We're going to put the other one through the hole in the boomerang and pull that forward. We're going to attach the chain on the cables onto the pedals, the carabiner that it's attached to the pedal. There's several different adjustments that can be made inside the cockpit for different heights of people. One, the seat can be moved forward and backward. The pedal foot control assembly can be moved forward and backward. And then the length of the chain onto the pedal can be adjusted by where you hook it in on the chain length. So generally what I'll do is I'll count links to the proper length that would work best for me. So you can make final adjustments with these chains to get those pedals into a comfortable position. Okay, the next thing that we're going to put on is the spray cover. And to do that, we are going to inflate our air sponsons to about 50% volume. And at that point, then we'll put the spray cover on. The spray cover is held on by, it's a tuck under design. It's held on by friction. So we'll blow up the air sponsons about half volume. And then that gives us good friction to hold it in place, but not so much that we can't tuck it under. So I'll go ahead and start blowing up this side. Okay, that's about half volume on those air sponsons. Now we'll go ahead and attach the spray cover. On the front of the spray cover, there's a little piece of flat lace on the inside of that spray cover. That flat lace right there is going to hook underneath the front of the mast bracket. Just like that. Then we're going to pull the spray cover back. We're going to disconnect the snaps. You got a couple hooks here also. We're going to hook those under the boomerang. Then we're going to hook the grommet onto the screw that protrudes from the boomerang. Same thing over here. Right there, just like that. Then we're going to snap the spray cover in place. Those are all the connections for the spray cover on the Expedition tuck under spray cover, which we have here. There's a bead of rope that is sewn in along the edge of that spray cover. We're going to take this flap with the rope and we're gonna tuck it up between the coaming and the deck. This is where you don't want to have too much tension on those sponsons or you can't tuck that up in there. Now that we've got it all tucked in, we're going to go ahead and finish off the inflation. Taking the sponson, and what I'm going to do here on the final inflation is you never want to overinflate one side from the other. If you do that, that will pull the entire hull off to one side of the frame. And then at that point in time, then your keel strips on the bottom of the boat aren't on the areas that they should be covering. And then I'm just simply going to tuck those sponson tubes back into the rear of the boat. Get them out of the way. One of the options on your spray covers are the mast sleeves. So if you're thinking that you might want to be sailing, then this is a good option to have. If you do have it, you basically can just tie this thing off, make it watertight. Okay, we've got the spray cover on the boat. Now the next thing is our skirt. When you're attaching your skirt around the cockpit ring, you're basically just stretching shock cord in the skirt around the ring. All right, what you've just witnessed is the assembly of the Mark I Expedition folding kayak. This is a beautiful boat. It will last for decades. Go out and enjoy your boat. My name is Mark Eckhart. I'm the owner of Long Haul Folding Kayaks.